everyone, and welcome back to the Big Analytics Query. We're in a new location, but it's the same content, and we'll be talking all about data governance with Microsoft MVP, Dr Victoria Holt, data governance expert. It's great to have you here.
And it's great to be here and talking on my favourite topic.
Well, why don't we get straight in? If it is so important, and it is your favourite, why is data governance so important in 2026? What are some of the core principles?
It's now got to a point that businesses can't go on without it because everything is data driven. We've got big data everywhere. We've got AI wanting all the data off or used for different things as well. I suppose businesses now, because of this sort of need, require data strategy.
Yeah.
And data strategy helps set governance, because governance needs strategy, but it needs to sort of apply with the data strategy side of things. So you need to then sort of think about how you go forward sort of with that and building that data governance strategy. So this is where you kind of sort of start to help people, I suppose, manifest where you need to be in that sort of like data governance space. And because we all want AI now, because that's everybody wants to do that, don't they?
Quicker access to more things, more features. It's the shiny thing on top, but actually it's what's behind it and what you set it up with makes such a difference, right?
It does, yeah. And there was the Gartner Analytics conference was a couple of weeks ago, and they were saying like at least 50% of businesses actually AI projects are failing. Mm-hmm. And it's all because the core data doesn't exist. Yeah. Nobody kind of owns the data. It's a very kind of emotive subject in some things, because people are just thinking about that data. Well, we need data for reporting, for compliance, so we meet GDPR. But now we need it to actually help make business decisions. And you can, if you make a wrong business decision, it can be quite costly for business. So that's kind of why we're sort of talking about like that data strategy side. And going back to how that sort of maps in as well, I think you've got just the setting up like that data as an asset, thinking of that, and that's why it has to be strategy wise, because it needs to come right the way down from the top to the bottom.
And it's often seen as quite just a sort of a technical thing and maybe a technical problem. Would you say that's the case, or?
Yeah, it's really interesting, because like you see now people are coming in, aren't they, and products that we work with is like Microsoft Purview, and yes, it's great, yes, it helps you do that, and it helps you automate things and move forward and make things extra quick. However, when you just think about the tooling, if we just go in and everyone's got tooling deployed to do that, there's this disconnect, because the business is actually dealing with the data. It's got all the different stewards working in the different areas. And then you've got the management side of things as well. And neither of the twain are kind of meeting quite often, because the tool's great. The tech teams are putting the tools in and it helps you automate and scale. However, the business actually need to use the tool, and it has to like flow right the way down from this is what the business needs. This is our use case. This is how this is going to help us. These are our primary data sets. And this is how it sort of moves down. So it's quite a bigger picture, and you need to make sure the business side is right and it flows towards the actual technical side.
So it's not just, great, let's get a data governance tool in and everything's solved. There's far more to it to make it more nuanced to your case and your business.
Yes, that's it. Yes.
So what should you look for as a business in a tool to help make it match your organisation in the best way?
So I always start when I'm talking to people thinking about the business need. I mean, do you have to meet compliance regulations? Is it like GDPR, or are you thinking about the new AI Act that's just come out with all those compliance things? Have you got like certain areas where you've got like fundraising areas, or you've got medical records and things like that? So if you don't know what the data needs to be good or how it kind of looks, you need to make sure that you start from that business side, work out which are the critical elements within those, and then move that into the tool. It has to be that the business has to be attached to the technical side. And obviously it's quite distributed among the business, because every different department has different areas. You've got like finance, you've got product teams, you've got service teams. So they're all kind of quite different.
And everyone's important, but what's important for some people isn't seen as important for everyone, and it's a balancing act.
Yeah, and everyone's got different terms that they think, oh, well, this is the term that we need for this, but then another department has the same term and things. So getting that clarity, that's where a tool really, really helps you get that and move forward. And then, but to scan all the data sets, you might have 100 data sets, and to do that manually, it's just far too much.
And in your experience of all of these businesses, what are some of the common pitfalls and mistakes you see people making?
Well, I think it's difficult to say like mistakes. I think it's to do with business growth.
Yeah.
And so you have like a small startup that's progressing in one sort of ways, and they're just trying to get through and deal with small bits. And you've got the bigger organizations which have sort of lots of different elements, and they've already got processes in place and probably compliance, because that's required for bigger organizations. And I think data governance is one of those really strange places that every business sort of starts from the need of what it needs. So if you've got GDPR compliance, it'll start from that side of things and only look at the data that's sort of related to that bit. It doesn't look at the wider picture. But where things don't quite work is when you do need to look at the wider picture, because people are doing reporting and analytics against this. And the reporting and analytics is actually driving off data off lots of different areas. So if you don't have that data owned and you don't know who's making sure that quality is really, really right, what then kind of happens is that everything sort of falling apart and the data can't be trusted, and you lose that sort of element. So I think it's just how things sort of evolved in organizations, and that's why it doesn't really kind of work in some organizations. But other people, they look at like different elements, and they sort of like, oh, well, they work for that, but then as you grow, you need, for the new businesses, you need to sort of grow and expand. But if the AI businesses, which everything is now based on data,
definitely building that
you need to build that governance layer right in that very beginning. And I think that's, for any new business now, you need to start right at the very beginning, think about governance right the way across the board, because it's embedded in the AI side and it's embedded in sort of like managing data for standard reporting and things. So that's where the key difference is for organizations that have been doing it for quite a while. You need to actually then think about, oh, well, we've got this problem where we are now, we don't have that, so you then have to like force that in, but you need to make it not like traditional governance projects where people have thought, oh, there's still quite a bit of this, oh, they're big, costly, take multiple years and things like that, but you need to go as like small and sort of move along, and then there's quite a difference. So I think it's quite trying to move that along. And obviously the big issue that needs to be looked at, I think, to help organise is that learning, data literacy, data culture, people always thinking about that. And it's not just about compliance side of things, because that sort of can be separated off as like a separate thing, and because it has fines related to that, whereas the day-to-day operational part of the business, the governance sort of sets all that up.
And trying to be proactive rather than just reactive.
Yes, that's it, yeah.
And with those new organisations starting out on the journey, how would you do it that's not just a needs must, we need to tick this box, let's do it? How would you start on a data governance journey?
So I quite often talk to customers, find out a little bit about the business and what they use the data for, finding out a little bit about what data they have in the business. So you're getting sort of a general kind of picture and understand where they are from like a knowledgeable point of view, as like, do they do analytics themselves? Do they use data themselves? Do they manually input data and things? So you can always frame everything in what the business actually needs. And then taking a step back, you need to then think about, well, so we need to have a central sort of place really that allows you to have like that governance model, that overarching meeting where you bring people from all different parts of the business in, so they can then all talk together and start managing that as you go forward. And then once you've got that going, you need to start to think about a few sort of aims about what is your primary assets, and do people own those? Because we need to start, you can't just say, well, we're going to have all of it, because it's not feasible. And some of it, as you say, if it's legacy, you don't kind of need it really, do you? So, or it's got lesser need, or it's only smaller bits. But you need to work out, well, we need data owners for what are our critical business assets. And then from those sort of like critical assets, we can then work out, well, who's actually working on that on a day-to-day basis? Do we actually have that? And perhaps we should have some data stewards. And then once you've sort of started to understand about who owns the data and what we've got, then I always think about, well, what's the data quality? What percentage? Is it good? Is it bad? Are there some areas? Have talked to people, find out, like, do you think that this data is good? Do you think this is not? And it always gives you a really good start to kind of go forward. And then thinking about whether they've got a business glossary, because understanding terms among different teams, they could all mean different types of things. And then thinking about, well, so we want to scale and grow, and we want to make it as easy as possible to go forward. So then we think, well, we need a tool. What elements within the tool we've got and how that sort of fits in. And then we can look at, and as a gradual sort of rollout with a tool, something like Microsoft Purview. It covers lots of things. It maps with primary sort of Azure metrics and sort of CDMC framework as well. So you've got like those elements which it's always good to sort of base off sort of frameworks. I like to use various different frameworks because they've all got different bits that are better for different elements. So.
But I guess having those conversations, being honest with where everything's at as a business, getting the definitions down, getting the roles confirmed is just how you would start.
Yes, that's
Before getting the tool and then building up.
Yes, I mean, I have seen it where tech teams have said, well, we need a tool, and put the tool straight in. But then you've still got to go back and do all of this, even if the tool's deployed, because it'll just sit there and won't do anything. And for governance to work, it has to be business-wide. So that's a really important thing that needs to be considered within that. It doesn't need to be costed, because you might be, as a business, we've got 3 critical data assets. You might have 100 tools or 50 or something, but only 3 of them are absolutely business critical. So just start on those, work on those, and get those all up and running across the board, get the people trained up within the different teams, and then everyone can feed back, say, well, where do we go now with it and things. I think if you try to boil the ocean, you never actually achieve anything.
Well, thank you very much for your insight and wisdom with it, Victoria. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for watching. If you do have any further questions about data governance, then do pop them in the comments below and we'll be sure to answer. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.